Single dad janitor shouted, "Don't get in the car." The CEO's response shocked the company. The morning it happened, no one noticed the janitor until his voice tore through the parking lot like a warning siren, raw with fear and urgency, carrying more truth than anyone realized in that moment. It was the kind of shout that didn't come from authority or power, but from instinct, desperation, and love. For a split second, time seemed to freeze, because sometimes the smallest voices arrive just before the biggest storms. Before this story goes any further, take a moment. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that real heroes don't always wear suits, please like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them. Every morning before sunrise, Daniel Reyes unlocked the side door of the corporate tower, the same way he had for 6 years. He worked quietly, methodically, polishing floors that executives walked across without a glance, emptying trash bins filled with half-drunk coffee and discarded ambition. To most people, he was invisible. Just another janitor with tired eyes and worn-out shoes. But to his 8-year-old daughter Sophia, Daniel was the strongest man in the world. A single father since the day her mother passed away from illness, Daniel carried his grief silently, wrapping it in responsibility and routine. He worked 2 jobs when he could, skipped meals when money ran thin, and never once let Sophia see the fear that lived in his chest. The company he cleaned for was massive, a glass and steel empire run by a CEO known for precision, distance, and control. Victor Hale was admired, feared, and respected in equal measure. He was the kind of leader people spoke about in hushed tones, a man whose decisions moved markets and whose schedule allowed no room for error. His life was efficiency, his emotions locked behind polished professionalism. What few people knew was that Victor's wife had died years earlier in a sudden accident, leaving him to raise his teenage daughter, Emily, on his own. He loved her deeply but awkwardly, expressing care through security details, expensive schools, and strict rules rather than warmth. That morning, Daniel arrived earlier than usual. Sophia had been sick the night before, coughing until dawn, and Daniel hadn't slept much. He dropped her at school with a promise whispered into her hair that everything would be okay. But something gnawed at him as he worked, a strange unease he couldn't explain. While mopping the lobby, he noticed a car idling too long near the executive entrance outside. It wasn't scheduled, didn't match the usual security rotation. Daniel wasn't trained for threat assessment, but life had taught him to pay attention to small details when everything depended on survival. As the morning rush began, Victor Hale exited the building with his daughter. Emily was distracted, headphones on, eyes glued to her phone. The driver stood by an unfamiliar vehicle, gesturing politely. Everything looked normal to everyone else. But Daniel felt his stomach drop. He had seen that driver before, not in uniform, lingering around the back alley days earlier, pretending to check his phone. Daniel remembered the eyes, restless and sharp. He remembered how the man vanished when noticed. Daniel didn't think about rank or consequences. He didn't think about how his voice might sound coming from someone like him. He ran. His mop bucket tipped over, water spilling across the polished floor as he burst through the doors. His shout ripped through the air, filled with panic and certainty, telling them not to get in the car. People stared. Security stiffened. For a moment, it looked like Daniel had lost his mind. What happened next unfolded faster than anyone expected. The CEO didn't dismiss him. He didn't wave security forward or bark orders. Victor Hale stopped. He looked at Daniel, really looked at him, and saw something in his face that couldn't be faked. Fear, yes, but also conviction. Victor raised a hand, halting everything. That single gesture sent a ripple through the staff. Security intervened, questioning the driver, checking credentials that didn't hold up under scrutiny. Within minutes, authorities were called. The car was searched. What they found confirmed Daniel's instincts in the most chilling way possible. The threat never made the news in full detail, but inside the company, the shock traveled fast. A janitor had potentially saved the CEO's daughter. Someone who cleaned toilets and emptied trash cans had prevented something unthinkable. The building buzzed with whispers, disbelief, and a quiet reevaluation of what mattered. Daniel expected consequences. He braced himself for termination, for being accused of overstepping boundaries. He needed the job. Sophia needed stability. That fear followed him all day, heavy and suffocating. When security escorted him to the executive floor, his hands shook. He thought about hospital bills, school fees, and how easily everything could fall apart. Instead, he was invited into a sunlit office he had only seen from afar. Victor Hale stood by the window, his back straight but his face changed. Gone was the cold detachment. In its place was something raw, shaken, human. The CEO thanked Daniel in a way that wasn't scripted or polished. He acknowledged that without Daniel's courage, his daughter's life might have been altered forever. It wasn't a speech for the board. It was a father speaking to another father, bound by fear and love. What followed shocked the company even more. Victor didn't offer a quiet bonus and send Daniel back to the shadows. He asked questions. About Sophia. About Daniel's life. About how someone so observant and brave ended up unseen for so long. Within weeks, changes began. Daniel was offered a position in facilities management, trained and supported. His schedule was adjusted so he could spend evenings with his daughter. Medical benefits covered Sophia's lingering health issues. For the first time in years, Daniel exhaled without feeling guilty. But the story didn't stop there. Victor Hale changed too. He began arriving earlier, leaving later, speaking more openly with employees he had never noticed. The company culture shifted subtly at first, then visibly. Stories spread about empathy, about listening, about the janitor who saved the CEO's daughter. Titles blurred. People looked each other in the eye. Daniel still cleaned sometimes. Not because he had to, but because it reminded him where he came from. Sophia's laughter returned to their small apartment, brighter now that fear no longer crowded every corner. Emily, the CEO's daughter, wrote Daniel a letter thanking him, words filled with teenage honesty and gratitude that made him cry alone in his kitchen. Life didn't become perfect. Challenges remained. Grief didn't vanish. But something fundamental changed. Daniel realized that his voice mattered, even when the world taught him otherwise. Victor realized that leadership wasn't about distance, but awareness. Two fathers, from different worlds, learned the same lesson in the most unexpected way. As this story nears its end, take a moment and comment below with a single word that describes how this story made you feel. Your words matter more than you think. And if this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that courage can come from anywhere and that kindness can change destinies, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and stay subscribed for more stories that honor humanity in its quietest, bravest forms.